So I've chosen to talk about the Boston Freedom Trail as my location of study. The Boston Freedom Trail is a tourist route with stops at many important places in historic Boston, including some locations where the Revolutionary War would find its formation and beginning. Locations include the Old South Meeting House and Funeral Hall, where they organized the Boston Tea Party, the Old State House, outside of which the Boston Massacre occurred, the Paul Revere House, and the Old North Church where they hung the lanterns, and the Bunker Hill Monument, as well as some additional historical significant Boston landmarks of other eras. Each of these was momentous in the early years of the fomenting the rebellion and the final acting out in act of resistance to the perceived tyrannical rule of Britain. The locations are of historical significance and therefore have been preserved over the past 240 plus years. The trail is preserved by the uh, Freedom Trail Foundation, who also markets and promotes the routes and the individual sites. This is from the Freedom Trail Foundation website. Each site along the trail is managed by various organizations. For example, the Old State House is managed by the Revolutionary Spaces organization, whereas the site right outside the Boston Massacre site, this is managed by the city of Boston. One other site that has gained some controversy over its preservation is the Old North Church. The Old North Church, of course, where they hung the lanterns. This has become controversial in 2003 when the Save America's Treasures program, which was funded through the National Park Service, this was challenged. This is because the question became, since it's being used for active religious use, there's still a congregation that meets there. Did this violate the Establishment Clause to fund the necessary repairs? It's from Sproul, 2005. The church's historical significance, of course, is not what was being questioned. This is where the lanterns were hung to signal that the British regulars were preparing to march onto Lexington Concord and then Paul Revere's famous ride. Senator Joe Lieberman, he argued that the preservation of places like the Old North Church and other houses of worship were important to preserve the historic places because they were places of community service. The funding, which eventually did go through this program, allows it to continue to support a modern congregation and American Revolutionary tourists. The Freedom Trail, with its many parts, would make a great field trip for secondary students. It would be a worthwhile venture to take students to see the places where the major turning points, like the Boston Massacre, occurred. This is important so that they can rationalize what actually happened. See that this is more than just a story or a myth that we tell to excuse the fight for liberty that we engaged in. The Boston Freedom Trail, of course, has some of its own myths. Of course, one of the most famous misconceptions based off of American storytelling is Paul Revere going around shouting, "The British are coming, the British are coming," which of course would make no sense as they were all British. Leahy, 1994, gives that point. It further shows the necessity of active historical preservation and engagement with these programs, having students come to see these landmarks to learn what true history actually happened and where it happened.